Welcome back from the break. This is eTalk, where we shed light on great innovations every Monday. And the topic we will be discussing about is telling the African business story. Now, joining me today is the co-director of Busy Being Born podcast, co-director Kamande Wambui, the podcast that focuses on telling African stories from an African perspective. He has a background in tech and is quite a titled man at that, if I do say so myself. I had a chance to talk to him. Welcome to the show, Peter. How are you doing?
Very fine, thank you.
You good?
Yes, I'm very fine, thank you.
Kamande.
Yes, Kamande.
Oh, it's not. It's Samuel Kamande.
Samuel Kamande, yes.
Samuel, I'm
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Oh,
how are you feeling this Monday?
Great.
You're
Great.
feeling
It's
great?
a bit cold, but I'm feeling great. I'm feeling grateful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself before we start with the conversation.
Okay, about myself. My name is Kamande Wambui, also Samuel Kamande Wambui.
Yeah.
I practice data science. That's my profession.
Yeah.
Data science is more or less a mixture of statistics
Yeah.
and computer science.
Yeah.
Until maybe a week ago, I was working for a company called Ajua, but I'm on a break right now,
Yeah.
just to try a few things out. I'm also a technology entrepreneur, meaning that I'm testing my waters in building technology businesses.
Right.
And the third thing is I run the Busy Being Born podcast. I'm one half of the hosts of the
Yeah.
Busy Being Born podcast.
Yeah.
And the fourth thing, I'm a man of many things.
Yes.
We like to say that specialization is for insects.
Yeah.
The last thing is that I am dad, and that's something that I really enjoy, which makes
Yeah.
me a lame joke artist as well.
It does.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it does. Anyway, maybe you'll tell us some of those lame jokes
Maybe.
after we are done with the conversation. But I mean, the list goes on and on. Let me read them from my from my notes. Master's degree in both statistics and computational intelligence from the University of Nairobi, a publisher of many journals. I mean, NPS certified, and head of many boards after that. Did you ever think that this is the direction that your life was ever going to channel?
Partly.
Yeah.
Partly. I like to say that my journey up to some point is quite conventional,
Right.
albeit with a lot of decisions that I've had to make along the way.
Yeah.
But I always loved mathematics, so I always knew that eventually I was going to be in a career that involves me doing some sort of mathematics, right? So initially it was, okay, back in the day, not that long back in the day, but it was BCom, right? All of us
Yeah.
wanted to be accountants and whatever else.
Not me.
Not you? Okay. A lot of us who you clearly didn't enjoy mathematics that much.
I
did.
hate it, but in fact, I wanted to ask you, how do you even like mathematics?
Mathematics. How do I explain this? The world is explained through numbers. The laws of mathematics and the laws of physics.
I don't understand. Why couldn't... No, okay, to me,
Yeah.
what is explained through history.
History. History is part of it.
Right.
Right?
But
But I think
yeah.
that everyday life and can be explained through the laws of physics and the
Right.
laws of mathematics.
Yeah.
And also part of me firmly believes or enjoyed the part of mathematics where you're able to arrive at an answer at that point in time.
Pythagoras theorem.
Whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. And so I found myself not doing BCom,
Yeah.
but more in the School of Mathematics at the University of Nairobi. I'm studying a Bachelor of Science in Statistics. That's how I started.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that course thoroughly for the 4 years that I was in school.
Really?
Yes, thoroughly. And then after that, I went back to school for my first master's in statistics.
How many masters do you have?
I have 2 master's degrees,
Wow.
one in statistics and another one in computational intelligence.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, I wanted to ask you. I thought it was 2. I thought it was like a double major. So I wanted to ask you, how did you go through that?
How did I go through it? So initially, maybe around 2013, 2014, data science was just becoming a career. And then I could talk about this at length. And data scientists is how we like to define it.
Yeah.
Today, in the simplest of terms, is
Yeah.
that it's a statistician who understands computer science
Computer
better
science, yeah.
than any ordinary statistician. Or
Right.
a computer scientist who understands statistics and is
Math
able
and-
to do
math and
statistics
science.
better than a regular computer scientist. So it's at the apex of those two things. And so me coming from a background of statistics, my first few years of my career was spent doing a lot of statistics at a few companies. And then I realized now, okay, data science is coming in and it needs you to have all these other computational skills because now it's taking it to the next level. It's not just working with, small data. Small data sets. Now getting into big data, compute. What electoral compute is now becoming something that can be found and accessible to a lot of people. We have algorithms that are now being moved from academia, taken from academia into the professional sector, set up, and now people are applying these things in day-to-day lives. At that point, that's when AI is starting to become a thing. So I had to go back to school, and I loved school always. Part of me still wants to be a lecturer, and went back and studied computational intelligence to upskill myself on computers.
Okay, so your background is massive. I mean, you've done a lot of work, a lot of journals in your specific field, that is. You're a scholar, and by the way, I must commend you for all that you've done. But following the question that I just asked you, I mean, podcasts. And I'm thinking, for me, podcasts is like a journalism genre. I mean, how then did you fit into into doing podcasts? And did you get help? Because sometimes I feel like doing interviews is an art. Getting answers from an interviewee is also an art. Did you get some help? What were the challenges at first?
A lot of challenges. It helps that I have a co-host for the Busy Being Born podcast. But the backstory of me getting into podcasting, first of all, I get that all the time, that I'm a walking contradiction in so many ways.
The other side of the spectrum.
Yes, exactly. But, like I said, specialization is for insects. Right? So how did I get into podcasting? Maybe 6 or so years ago, I got into the habit of listening to podcasts during my commute, right? And obviously this came from, first of all, you read books, and then the people who are writing those books, you get interested in them, and now you start looking for where they're sharing more information about how they think.
Right.
Yeah, and so I ended up, getting into a bit of podcasts. And over time, I'd say that to a significant extent, they changed my life in so many ways. Learning from people across different facets of life, people from different geographies, people who've achieved in so many ways. And one of the characteristics that stood out for me was the fact that in a podcast, I'd get into the depths of how someone thinks, what has shaped, what experiences have shaped how they view the world, what they read, who they look up to, their habits, and so on and so forth. And so for the last maybe 5 years, I always consumed such material. And so you're right that, asking good questions is an art. And part of that, me listening to a lot of podcasts has shaped my ability to
So it's just listening. And after you've listened, it's like you take the shape of it.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
It also helps that I have a podcast co-host who's from the creative part of it.
It's a creative.
Part of me was a creative at some point. I did theater, and that's how we met. Long story. But he also helps me with my creative functions.
Yeah, your creative functions. Because he can see things that you can't.
Yes, precisely. So once we come together, then things flow very seamlessly, if I may.
I mean, you've talked about being a developer. You develop a lot of things. You're going into developing technology.
Yes.
Developing, is it also mechanical development?
No, it's right now it's just technology.
Yeah, it's just technology.
So code with a heavy bias towards products that are data driven.
Yeah. My question is, how then do you develop? What's the developing process of making the podcast? From the time when you say, okay, this is the lady this is the guy that I want to interview. This is it has to be. I hear some of your podcasts, you say that we tell African stories. You're into the African stories.
We spotlight African excellence.
You spotlight African stories. So what is the developing process of, from the beginning to the end?
Yeah,
the
so
development
first of all, we
process?
have, like any other organization that wants to excel, you have to build yourselves around certain ethos and fundamentals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for us, we know what we stand for. We know that we are a
Yeah.
long form conversational podcast. We know that we want to tease out the habits and the things that make different people successful at what they do. And that is from having long form conversations with them. So we know that that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So the process of preparation for us is identifying someone within a particular discipline, be it entrepreneurship, be it the arts, be it whoever else.
Yeah.
Right? We just got started. We
Yeah.
are maybe 15, 16 episodes in. Once we identify that person, then do a lot of research on them, because we do not want to be conventional at all in terms of the questions we ask them.
Yeah.
That is not helpful to either us
Yeah.
or our audiences.
Yeah.
Right? So once we do a lot of research, we've also developed a particular set of questions that kind of get us into that groove, make them comfortable, get them to open up, so that by the time we are at the 25th, 30th minute, then we are deep into the cracks of
Right.
who Natasha is,
Yes.
who Tasha is.
Now you've
what
made a
defines-
whole story.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And then we uncover a lot of gems that have not been uncovered
yeah.
by anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's very selfish, by the way. We like
Right.
to say this. It's very selfish because we only invite people who we ourselves are interested in. Right? So we first want to be the beneficiaries of these conversations, of these
Yeah.
excellent African stories.
Then there's
so
an
that we can learn
intimacy.
from them.
There's an intimacy.
There's an
there.
intimacy, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to learn from them. The
Yeah.
moment I invite you first,
Yeah.
our audience is, kind of second party.
Right.
The first party is me. I'm asking you questions because I want to learn from you
Yeah.
and improve my own life, because it's very contextual as well.
Yeah.
You've made it in Africa, right? There is something I can always learn from you.
Right.
And then in the process, our audience learns as well. So I guess that's the framework within which we operate.
Right. I don't know if we probably have 2 minutes. Let me ask you
Okay.
maybe 2 questions in the simplest of terms. This is a question that I was really passionate about, and I wrote it down here, and I was thinking, we're in the era of the revelation of the black man. I mean, black history and telling African stories. It's though Africans have realized themselves, and I'm saying this in the aspect of TikTok. We have Nyar, this lady, her name is Nyar, is it Nyar Seme? What she does is that she talks about African stories,
African history and
even
philosophy.
African history.
Yeah.
She talks about Muammar Gaddafi, and like you're just woke. Was this the same thing the same thought process? Because I mean, we are now knowing that African stories were never told the way that they told them to us.
Yep,
We were told
yep.
to us
There's a lot of-
even in school, even in history, in history class.
There's been a lot of distortion down the line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's partly connected, because one of the things we realized is that we listen to a lot of these podcasts about people who are excelling outside of Africa.
Yeah.
Right? And we learn from them, but
And
the
there's so
context,
much
the context
richness.
is missing, right? The context
Yes.
is missing. There might be a lot of things that are commonalities,
Yeah.
but at the same time, there's a lot of dissimilarities. So we want to tell African stories because they've not been curated anywhere.
Is it
right?
important for you to always tell a positive story? Because I mean, you've talked about it being habits, routines, always what it is that you have done that is different from anybody else. I mean, that is positivity at its best.
Yeah.
Is it something that it is very intentional for you to do?
Totally. It's
Yeah.
very intentional, but we also want to look at challenges as well.
Yeah.
I mean, each of the people, the people we interviewed has not had a linear curve to how they've gotten to where they are. And a lot of these things are not linear.
Yeah.
So we also want to listen to their challenges, but even more importantly, how did they overcome those challenges?
Right.
And what part did those challenges play in shaping who they are today?
Right. So this is my last question. My favorite podcast, by the way, from the podcast.
From the Busy Being Born podcast.
Yeah, from the Busy Being podcast is Patricia Okello.
Yeah.
And she really exercised her strength as an entrepreneur. I mean, for women trying to venture into the entrepreneurial world and you having first-hand experience with people who have done it, tell us what women should look at. This is the era of women. We have women vice presidents, women presidents. This is just a woman's world right now.
Yeah,
you know?
totally. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think Patricia epitomizes what it means to be a successful woman in business,
Wife.
in my view.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's been able to balance it all out.
Yeah.
challenges notwithstanding, because
Yeah.
she's been through a lot of challenges, and people should look her up and listen to her stories,
Very
read her book.
interesting.
If you're a woman entrepreneur, then you should definitely go and read her book, which is
Yeah.
Candid Conversations, right? But she mentioned a lot of things. Women bring a lot to the table, and that's where they're excelling right now, because we are, I don't want to think that we're moving left and left each and every day, or at least center, in terms of how we operate. There's a lot of femininity that is needed in today's world.
Yeah, not
And
feminism, femininity.
Not femininity, right?
Yeah.
Femininity in terms of people who are in touch with other people, compassion. And women exemplify that.
Very,
right?
very
So if you
exemplary.
listen to her story, she talks about how she's grown her business by being very interested in people. And that's what, especially in the last few years, with Corona and
Right.
what have you, how you build your business by connecting to people as much as possible.
All right, thank you so much. We are going on a break, but we'll be back with the other half of the podcast.